Hi, welcome back everyone to Divorce Den. Today we have the honor and privilege of speaking with Melissa Murphy-Pavone, a CDFA in New York, and she's going to talk to us today about the real of getting divorced, especially for families who are living paycheck to paycheck. Because it's not easy to make it when there's a cost of living crisis, when there's a housing crisis, when there are so many different things going on and you have two incomes in one household and now you're going to be splitting. How is it that you can do it? So we again have the honor and privilege of speaking with someone who I've worked with before and who really knows her stuff. Melissa, I just want to turn it over to you. I want you to introduce yourself, give us any information about you because you're phenomenal. But also, I'd really just like to start with explaining to everyone, what does it mean paycheck to paycheck divorce? Like, what does that actually mean when we're talking about that in real terms?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and just working with you and helping people get through this really tumultuous time in their life. Divorcing, living paycheck to paycheck, we all know it. The cost of living is high. Often people have, two incomes in one household and they're barely making ends meet. And they're thinking like, how am I going to afford this? And a lot of people end up staying in unhealthy relationships or marriages due to that cost and that fear of the unknown. And I think what's so important is it's not cheap, right, to get divorced. It costs money. We as professionals, we have fees and it costs money and it takes time. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And even if you're going from one household to two households, you can do it. But the key is to get really clear on the numbers. And that's where I come in as a certified divorce financial analyst. And really, we get financially naked together because we want to get down to what's coming in and what's going out, right? And if we know what those numbers are, and people sometimes know what's coming in, very few people know what's going out. And when we just turn our attention to what we're spending it on, then there becomes that intention of like, hey, can I do this? Can we trim the fat somewhere? Are there things that we're spending our money on that are not important that could go towards rent, right? If we're splitting houses, or can go towards retirement or support or, things for the children. So it's really having that hand holding of going through the numbers and really looking, how can I afford this? And you can, right? People do it all the time. You make it work, but sometimes you just need that accountability partner to go through and find out where the imbalance is and where we can find it.
Yeah. And so for anyone who is sort of living paycheck to paycheck and thinking, I don't want to stay stuck in this toxic relationship. I know that we need to move on, but how do I do this? What's maybe a tip for the one place, right? The number one place where they can start and they can start planning for how to be financially independent and how to financially make it through this divorce?
I think financial clarity is just honestly key. Like, you have to know what your numbers are. And I say the 5 numbers you need to know are your assets, which is what you own, your liabilities, which is what you owe, your income, which is what you earn, your expenses, which is what you pay out, like cash flow out, and then your credit score. And a lot of people forget the credit score, but having the ability to either have credit in your name or see what's open in your name. Sometimes we don't even know what is outstanding. And it could be an old Home Depot credit card, right? That's an old joint account that you needed to get the 0% for the new dishwasher. And that card might be maxed out and you might not know it. Sometimes there's that financial infidelity that you're not sure about. So it's one of the first steps. I say, run your credit report, see what's open in your name. A lot of times there's things that were open that you don't remember about, and just kind of rip that Band-Aid off so you know where you are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I actually knew somebody who was a junior, and when they went and ran their credit, they had a lot of their father's things on their credit, and they did not even know it. And
Right.
they didn't know it until they went and applied for housing. And then it was, oh my gosh, now how do we clean this up? And it was a lot of work to clean that up and to try to
Yeah.
convince the creditors that it was not theirs.
Yeah, and it happens, sometimes it's fraud, right? There was this whole thing where children's social security numbers were being taken out. But a lot of times you forget, right? Like you sign up for
Right.
something a long time ago, it's sitting there, another bank took it over or something else, and you just don't know because, and a lot of things today are electronic. So it's not like there's a bill coming in the mail that's reminding you often. So there's that advance in technology. Often, sometimes things slip through the cracks. So the credit report, you can always get a one annual credit report annually for free. And I always want to put a disclaimer that there's a lot of like paid for credit reports where they try to like get you for creditor monitoring, but it's annualcreditreport.com. It's the only one. They don't require a credit card. You get your report and you're entitled to one free a year, and that's like the best place to start out, just to see what's open in your name and what your score is.
Yeah, that's really great advice, because knowing your credit score is huge, because that's part of the bigger financial picture. Like you said, that financial clarity, that's one piece of it. And you were talking about the 5 things to know. One of them was assets. What if there aren't a lot of assets to divide, right? Maybe they just have a house and maybe a savings account, a small retirement account, and they just think, I really don't have anything, right? We could just sell the house, split the retirement, and go on. How can somebody who doesn't have a lot, or they don't think they have a lot of assets, start to move forward in a way that they're actually comfortable with, and they can do that with clarity?
Yeah, so the house is always a big thing, right? Because it's the couple's biggest asset together. And, sometimes people are just like, okay, either one person buys the other person out, or we sell it and divide the proceeds. I try to, as you know, because we work together, trying to find kind of outside the box solutions depending upon what's important to the individual family. And that's the beauty of mediation and collaborative divorce, that sometimes there's outside the box solutions that we can come up with that meet the needs of those families. But even if it's like, hey, we're renting an apartment, like who's keeping the lease, right? Who's staying in the apartment? If you're both signed on that lease, you're both liable, right? It's health insurance, right? Like I'm covering the health insurance through my employment. Do you have health insurance after the fact? Is there like a support obligation? Is there, car insurance is cheaper when there's 2 people, or a cell phone on a family plan. So there's a lot of these things that are not necessarily assets, but contracts, right? That you guys are in together as a couple, that we have to figure out who's kind of keeping what and how to divide those things. And it's a lot, right? It's heavy stuff, and it's not just, okay, a house and money. There's a lot of other things going on, airline miles, right? Credit card points, animals, like there's a lot there. So even if there's not a lot, it still makes sense to get very clear on what you do have, and what you want and what your partner wants, so that you can come up with the best solution for your family.
Yeah, so it's interesting hearing you talking about health insurance, because that really is a big one. I hear so many people say, I can't actually afford to get insurance on my own. Can we get a separation agreement instead of a divorce? Or can we delay the divorce because I have health issues, or I have a surgery coming up and I need to hold on to that health insurance? So I'm just thinking, I know, again, because we've worked together, what are some small things that people can start to do now to kind of make sure that they're safeguarding or considering when you're talking about those added expenses down the road, like maybe healthcare?
Yeah, I always try to say, like, let's get ahead of it and be proactive rather than reactive. So, call the car insurance company and start getting some quotes and just start shopping it out, right? Same thing with your cell phone. See, who is the owner on the account and what it entails by taking the family plan, apart. If it's health insurance, seeing if we can bridge the gap depending upon age, like are we close to Medicare age? A lot of times, sometimes if we're in that, late 50s, is there a solution there that we can kind of bridge the gap, or does your employer offer it? If not, can you talk to your employer? Can you go to the marketplace? Is there, there are options. It's just a matter of like knowing what to do. And a lot of times people just get really overwhelmed, right? Because it's an emotional roller coaster. There, on top of all the legal aspect that obviously you help them with, there's that financial aspect that I can help them with, but then there's the emotional aspect, and it's a roller coaster, right? Like some days are good days and we're getting shit done, and other days we're like, barely getting out of bed, you know?
Yeah, very true. So I'm thinking, when you're saying this, maybe writing it down, maybe having some sort of financial diary, because you're right. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. So when people can take things piece by piece, if you just take those bite-sized pieces, call the insurance company, get those quotes, write it down, because then you have something concrete in front of you and you've made some progress.
Yeah, and it's also helpful too, like you said, like those bite-sized pieces of like the to-do list or the roadmap, because you feel like you're taking a step forward. Because a lot of times, right, it's like hurry up and wait through the divorce process, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's out of your control. And so these are the things that you can control and that you can start finding out. And it helps when you get to that negotiation phase to have hard numbers. And I think it's like, oh, hey, okay, get your own insurance. Can I get my own insurance? What does that look like? How much does it cost? Who should you carry the kids? Should I carry the kids? Like, what does that look like? But it makes more sense if you come to the table with here's the data, right? Then we can make an informed decision together. Because just by saying, okay, I'm going to cover your insurance isn't plausible, right? If we don't know for how long, how much, if it's even feasible.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and that brings me to my next question, which I think this is one of them. What do you think is a number one mistake that people who are living paycheck to paycheck kind of make when they're thinking about divorce or separation when they enter into it?
I think that sometimes the emotion gets to people and they just want to be done, right? You're paying a lot of money out, sometimes hemorrhaging, right? And it feels like you're not making any progress. And sometimes I see people, unfortunately, give up at the end because they're just like, I'm done, I want out. And I really want people to make decisions with their head and not their heart, and really educated decisions. That's really like my whole mantra, is to really empower people to make the best decisions for them. And in order to do that, you need to have the facts and figures. Like, we need to know, there has to be full financial disclosure, and it's how much things are, the titling of assets, when things were opened, all of those little details make a big difference. So I try to encourage people just to take that pause and to allow there to be that minute, because oftentimes there's pressure, right, from the other side. All right, I'll give you this if you just sign today, or we can try to make a deal. And if someone's trying to do that, a spouse is trying to do that, a professional is trying to do that, it's usually not in your best interest, right? So there's no harm in just taking a pause, reflecting, hiring a professional that's in your best interest, and really getting an extra set of eyes on things.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because sometimes you are stuck in the moment, and like you said, it's so emotional and you're so overwhelmed, and you do want to sign it, right? You want to do it. You want to be done with this. So putting your pen on paper feels almost like a relief. Okay, I'm done. But if you don't actually know what is behind all of that paperwork, meaning, like you talked about before, the assets, the income, the debt, everything, and you don't have a real picture of that, what you're signing is binding. So I tell people all the time, when someone's sort of pressuring you to do it, you think that, okay, well, I'm just going to get it done and over with and I'll worry about it later. Worrying about it later can cost a tremendous amount of money. It can actually, you can actually lose so much more than you realize. And another thing that I just want people to know is that sometimes it's not just your spouse who's doing that, right? Kind of forcing this, like, please sign this quickly. Sometimes it's the other attorneys. I've been in court and it's judges. Get outside and sign this. Okay. And that pressure, that external pressure, feels like you have no other options. But you do. You can always step back and get educated and find out about what it is that you're signing. Find out about the finances before you sign it.
Yeah, and I always say, when you're when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you're trying to get through the day. You are not thinking about 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And as a CFP and a CDFA, I have the ability to really zoom out with empathy, but zoom out and look at your long-term financial future. And I think that's really the thing that people often miss, is because they're like, oh, okay, it's just money, I'll make more, right? Or it's just taxes, I'll pay them. But there are long-term consequences to signing these binding documents. And nobody wants divorce remorse, right? Like, you got here, and nobody's happy to be here, but you can tactfully and amicably split ways in a way that is looking out for your long-term future. So I think that's really important too, because it's hard to see it when you're going through it.
Yeah, so that leads me to just asking you about, because I love working with you and I love working with CDFAs when we're in a divorce negotiation, because what I'm looking at through the legal lens is, what is somebody entitled to? What does the law say? What is the statute? As opposed to, how are we going to get them through it today? Because today's real, tomorrow's real, but like you said, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they're still going to be living with the ramifications of this. So what's the best way for someone who's going through divorce, whether it's divorce mediation or collaborative, which we believe very highly in, or even litigation? What's the best way for them to work with a CDFA, and what are the benefits?
I always say, before anybody, when everyone is ready for, or thinks they're ready for divorce, there's kind of three pillars. The first being emotional. So either to have that mental health professional, have that divorce coach, somebody there to help kind of walk you through this process and be your lifeline. When you're then ready to hire a CDFA, there's great ones out there. We can work across the country, we can work virtual, we can work, face to face. And the CDFA, oftentimes people, are intimidated by all the letters after your name, right? And it really boils down to looking out for your financial best interest. And that's what we do. And I offer a financial clarity package, which is sort of a limited scope. Hey, if you're quietly thinking about divorce, you just are curious to know what it might look like, what the asset division might look like, what the support might look like, what documents do I even need to get ready? We can do that for you together and handhold you. And then oftentimes, then the next call is, hey, I'm going to call Liz, I'm going to call a mediator, I'm going to call an attorney and see, what are your options. But if you're prepared emotionally and then financially, and then you choose the best process for you. And sometimes it's mediation, sometimes it's collaborative. We hope it's not litigation, but sometimes it has to be litigation, depending upon your spouse. But I think having that three-prong approach is really important. And by the time you get to a mediator or an attorney, you are emotionally, stable, or emotionally prepared, and then you're financially prepared because you have all your documents you need. You did that discovery, you know your numbers, and so you're walking in to negotiations a little bit more confident, knowing what's out there, so you're not blindsided, and you're coming from a place of intention and calmness with financial clarity, which I think is really key.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you, what's your takeaway message, and what is it that you think that families who are living paycheck to paycheck, what is it that you want them to know when it comes to getting divorced or separated? Like the one message that you really want them to take away from this?
I think I want everyone to know that there is a way out, right? It might feel impossible at the moment, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are professionals such as Liz and myself who really believe in an amicable process, and you don't know it right now, but you will be on the other side of it soon.
Yeah, that's a great message, and that's mine too. But to your point, really having the right professionals in your corner, having that CDFA, having that coach, having a therapist to help you gain that clarity, because I never, as an attorney, as a mediator, I never want anyone signing an agreement that they don't fully understand, and that they're not coming to the table fully calm and able to sign it, not feeling pressured, not feeling like this is a last minute thing, not feeling like this is their last resort. I want them to fully know what it is. And I'm not a financial expert. I'm not a psychological expert, right? So I can't provide them with therapy or with the financial clarity that other professionals can. So I really would love it if people came away from this, even people who are living paycheck to paycheck, to take that step back, reach out to somebody like Melissa and really gain that clarity, because knowledge is really empowering. It's just so empowering when it comes to getting divorced.
Yeah. And it's great when your professionals work together. I think one of the myths, right, is that more professionals equal more money. And the truth of the matter is that if you hire people to stay in their lane and do what they do best, it's really time efficient and cost efficient. So you're saving time and money because everyone is doing their job and working at, their optimal level.
Yeah, and that's really a fantastic point that we can end on, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to be able to save money and you need to know where every dollar is going. And if your money is going to an attorney to review your finances, I'm telling you right now, you're burning money, right? We've gone through school, we have a high degree, but we are not financial experts. So even though I can look through your finances, I can never see it through the same lens as somebody like Melissa, who can see it twice as fast, can come up with solutions much better than I can. So your time and money and energy is much better spent with the right professional. So thank you again, Melissa, for joining us. And if you could just let us know where we can reach you, and the best way for somebody to reach out and maybe ask questions, find you on social media and your email.
Yeah, absolutely. My company is called mindfuldivorcepartners.com. I offer complimentary consultations. If you would prefer someone in person, I'm happy to refer you to someone. I have a network of CDFAs across the country that we refer clients to. www.mindfuldivorcepartners.com. My email is melissa@mindfuldivorcepartners.com.
Thank you again so much, Melissa, for coming and explaining all of this, because paycheck to paycheck is no way for anyone to live, but when you're going through divorce, it can just feel like it's overwhelming. But if you take it piece by piece, just like you said, it can be done. It's achievable. We've done it. We're helping people do it every single day. And I thank everyone here for joining us today on Divorce Den. If you have any questions or you have any comments, or if you have any follow-up questions that you would like for us to address, I would certainly love to have Melissa back and other professionals as well. Please drop a comment, subscribe, like, and share this with anyone else who is going through divorce, especially if they are thinking that they can't do it because they are living paycheck to paycheck. Because right here, living proof you can do it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us.